Any good cop knows that they're wrong and understands that there is a severe punishment for when you're wrong. And they'll beat themselves up more than IA can ever, or their chief can ever beat them up.
Black hole of mental health. I was very suicidal at the time. I had the wherewithal to take all my guns out of the house, but nobody from the department cared. My relief sergeant, he went into the chief's office and said, "Look, motherfucker, you know he's suicidal." And the chief's response was, "Let's hope he has other friends."
When I turned my gear in, I didn't leave my bed for 4 days. I was deep in depression because all I wanted to do as a kid was be a cop.
Welcome back to the IA Guy Hey Police podcast. Here with your host, Marlon Marrache. Again, I think I say this all the time. Guests are all special, of a special breed, of a special place. Today, we're going to the East Coast. I know that one went to Florida and the other is in the wonderful state of Ohio, which I'm still trying to figure out, why do people actually go to Ohio? And that's just from a West Coast lens. But, you know, we'll talk about that later. You know what? Marc and Nick, co-hosts of the Roll Call Room podcast, are going to be Code 6 at Scene. You know what? I got to start off with, okay, so car rental, let's back up. First was the family-owned restaurant, and at some point there was a used car lot and a car rental. And next thing you know, you wanted to be a Marine. I don't know why. And you became a cop. What's that all about, Nick? Because I'm gonna get to you next, Marc.
No, that was Marc.
Yeah, that's.
Oh, that was Marc.
Yeah, my story's not the restaurant story.
Okay, well, go, since you got the floor and I messed up. Go right ahead.
No,
tell us
you're
what happened
fine.
Before.
So, you know, I was in retail before. I chased bad guys, you know, through the aisles of Home Depot, and wanted to be a cop. And, you know, in between doing that was very oddly was a tattoo artist. You know, never tattooed my neck or my head, which is rare for some cops. And then I joined the New York City Police Department, and then left there, and I went down to Virginia, right outside of DC. A wonderful area to get your feet wet and, you know, get into every type of crime that there is. Fairly decent sized department too, but 350.
That's right. And my apologies, Nick. I thought it was Marc, but I already described Marc, and you're the look-alike guy. You know, you're that guy. Where to my LEPD crowd, we used to call that radio call, see the officer holding a 484. The way it used to come out. 484 is petty theft. So apparently used to go to respond to the mall, you know, whether it's Walmart or any of those retail stores. And then we meet with loss prevention, and they tell us, hey, you know, we saw someone do this, and that, and we got them all on camera. And then if they pass the cashier, that's like the threshold. Like, my God,
all points of purchase.
There you go. Exactly. And next, you know, we take them in, and I want to say the explanation that we had as police officers was something along the lines like, okay, look, we're just going to arrest them and transport them and book them for you. But when you go to court, you are responsible, and you are the one that has to present the case, or you got to talk to the DA's office to get that filing. Am I missing something here?
No, you're 100% right. And I'll tell you, when I was doing loss prevention, you know, I thought I was solving the crimes of the century. Really, you know, like I would catch somebody with stealing 10 screws, and I was like, you know, drive home, and I was, you know, on adrenaline for 2 days. And then, you know, then I became a cop, and I would get those radio calls to go stop at Target or Home Depot, and they're the slowest drive to that place, because you're like, this is going to be 5 hours of my life. You know, this person's going to fight. You know that this person is going to complain on you, and you're not the one that, like you just said, you're just facilitating the arrest. Like you're just taking them in for processing, but you're the bad guy because they're not going home because of you. So when I became a cop, it was those shoplifting calls for service that I was like, ugh.
Yeah.
But it's it's the stuff that they don't cover on cops.
That's right.
They don't
No,
do a cops episode on shoplifter at
we
park.
have a screw theft controversy, and we
That's
have
it.
to, I mean, oh my God, police has to get here. Hey, let me ask you this though, because I
Yep.
always wonder sometimes those type of uh service calls, if you will, are did you ever get a filing for maybe a burglary, like a felony?
Oh
Other,
yeah. Oh yeah.
right?
Yeah, those were good for when my stats were really low for the month. Like as a cop, like I would see it pop up on the screen, and it would say, because in Virginia, it was $250 or more was a felony,
That's
so it
right.
would show up on the CAD
Whoa.
system. Person in custody at Lowe's stole 2 drills, and I know, being a home improvement person, drills are expensive, so
Oh yeah.
I would floor that car there because I knew it was a felony. And I was, one felony was 15 points on my worksheet. We had a worksheet in my old department, but we didn't have a quota.
Yeah.
We had points. Points.
I love it. Now moving on to the car salesman. It makes sense, right?
It totally does.
That you're an e-bike
uh,
instructor. I mean,
yeah, drive guy, car guy. I'm a car guy.
you're a car guy.
Yes, sir.
I'm an F1 guy.
Yeah. Mark is my after picture 10 years later.
Hey,
Go
Mark,
ahead, Mark.
out of
I'm sorry.
curiosity, and I watched Netflix F1. I watched every single series. I love that stuff, right? And even the
hmm
movie with Brad Pitt. That was a good movie. Along with the documentary on NASCAR. Question, since you're a car
hmm
guy, what is
Okay.
if I were to put a NASCAR driver in an F1 car, or if I were to grab an F1 driver, let's just say Max Verstappen. I know this stuff. If I
hmm
put Max over at the NASCAR, um, what do you, which, how can I ask this question? Which one of this transition would be difficult
Oh,
or
okay. So going
challenging? I
from
should say challenging.
so you're asking me. Well, first of all, thanks for having me. It's
Yes.
an honor and a pleasure to be on the IA podcast. Um, so what you're asking me is taking a NASCAR guy out and putting him in an F1 car or vice
Correct.
versa.
Well, both.
I think that
Let's just go. I mean, what's your thoughts?
I think that they're transitional, and the difference is to when I first started driving. I started driving at 5 years old, and I was driving open wheel cars. So, if you're familiar with the sprint cars,
Okay.
it's like the Kings Royal is ran here in Ohio, up at the Eldora Speedway. They're not paying me to say that, but that's what they call, and then a 1/4 size of that car is called a quarter midget.
Okay.
So that's what I started driving as when I was 5 years old. My brothers both drove them as well. So going from NASCAR to an open wheel like an F1 car, that's just where you got to make your difference. And the speeds are a lot more. And those F1 cars are right on the ground, where the NASCAR vehicles are a little higher, and they don't get the speeds the way they do. So, but it's all about the same stuff. It's all level platform. Going through your turns. What's your racing line, etc.
Yeah, my thinking is also the little that I know about all this, but of course I think, when I drive now my Explorer ST, here on the freeway, I'm like,
Nice selection.
I'm an F1 dude. My twin
Hey, I
turbo.
tell you what, that Explorer runs. I mean,
Yeah.
that thing is like a
Can't let go of it.
6-passenger Mustang GT. That's a great
Well, that twin
platform.
turbo is ST is bomb, dude. I love my car. But my thinking is that as I'm watching NASCAR it's first of all, it's all circles. It's a circular.
hmm
And then at one point, it kind of like, it's almost as if you're like in an angle.
hmm
And at one
Oh yeah,
point,
you're
there's
banked.
like three on the
Yeah.
bank, and dude, you're like killing each other to try to pass each other up. Where in the F1, there's a lot of turns and there's probably like a narrow open drive. We're like, all right, yeah,
Yeah.
1.5
Yes.
seconds. Go ahead and pass them up.
Yep.
Got to plan it out. Find your straightaways or beat him into the turns. But
Love it.
yeah.
Love it. Love it. Hey, thank you both for showing up. I was honored to be on your podcast, and we'll talk a little bit about how that all came to birth, right? How we all started,
Sure.
saw that stuff. We all have something in common, and it is internal affairs. We can all agree, and I think I've said this in your show, that it's a topic that's very taboo. It's very hush
Mm-hmm.
hush. No one really likes to talk about it. And this is just for the audience that in law enforcement, for whatever reason, we just don't really like to talk about either A, get in trouble and the department got it wrong, or get in trouble. And yes, there is accountability 100% my way. And you can learn from this. And so
Mm-hmm.
I come to find out that here we are a year and a half later, and I'm blessed 150 plus guests at 1.3 million views. And it just goes to show you that it's a much needed topic, and more than anything, and I'm sure both of you can agree that if we are going to talk about and preach transparency, that buzzword, you know what? Here you have
Mm-hmm.
it. What do you think?
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you. I think you're not really supposed to, while you're on the job, you're really not supposed to talk about II stuff. And in some cases, gag orders are in
Mm.
effect when you're going through it and even past it. I've been a party to some IAs. I've done some IAs, and we always in my agency we were always given a gag order the moment that you received your charging orders.
Mm-hmm.
You weren't allowed to discuss the case. You weren't allowed to discuss it with your sergeant, lieutenant, captain, anybody.
Yeah.
And then once the resolve of the case was over, you'd really have to go and seek whether or not that gag order was still in effect. And a lot of times you couldn't get a really solid answer. I think towards the end of our law enforcement career, Mark and I,
Mm-hmm.
we saw a really drastic weaponization of IA,
Oh yeah.
which is unfortunate because there are great things that are done with internal investigations when they're done
Well,
fair and impartially.
100%. Well, let's get right to it. You did mention the buzzword weaponization. Hey, Mark, let me ask you this. What does weaponization look like in an internal affairs investigation?
Well, from my purview and my perspective, the weaponization of it is you were talking about the gag order. Okay. So what they're doing is they're putting these guys off. They're telling them they can't talk to anybody. They're isolating them at their home to where they can't speak to anyone.
Okay.
And everyone at the department, like in my world, we're told if you talk to that person, then, I'll fire you. And then you can, yeah. Oh yeah. There's always that and untruthfulness. They always like to sneak those in, but leaning towards the weaponization of the IA, I think we've lost our human factor. I was brought up under I don't want to say the good old boy system. That's not what I'm trying to say, but a lot of my chiefs and command staff were very pro officer. So yeah, we all mess up. We all have bad judgment or we'll do something, whatever. And it seems as if, as of late, what's happening is we've gotten caught behind, especially since the big lie of Ferguson was brought out. We need to hold these cops accountable. Mm-hmm. I'm all about accountability. I'm all about transparency as well. Yeah. But the way IAs have been here lately, it seems to me that it's not beyond just discipline. Mm-hmm. It's we want to discipline you. It's like, I want to come home and burn your house down. And then I want to shoot your dog when they come out. And then I'm going to fuck with your ability to get a job after being a cop. I don't understand that. It's just like a vindictive viciousness when it comes to internal affairs. And from my purview, you have a good cop. He's a hard charger. You have nothing but stellar evaluations. And he has one misstep. And now we're ready to throw the baby out with the bathwater instead of saying, hey, man, what's going on with this? Or, you stepped on your hoo-hoo and you stood up. Here's going to be your discipline. But don't let this change your attitude. Here's what's going to happen. At the end of this time, I want you to come back because you're a good cop and the agency needs you. I don't see a lot of that from my purview.
Nick, let me ask you this and pick it up from there. Has internal affairs from your lens changed since you started your career in law enforcement? What do you think?
Oh, drastically. I think we kind of see it with the political atmosphere that's outside of law enforcement, which is in the early 2000s, you started to see people coming into the police department that didn't have the calling. And what I What I mean by that is all of us that are cops, we ran around playing cops and robbers when we were kids. We knew what we wanted to do. The majority of us knew what we wanted to do. Those are the ones that I went to the police academy with in the late 90s, and then started to see that that was changing. We started to get a lot of infiltration within law enforcement of the complete opposite of why they wanted to be in law enforcement, which was to protect and serve and, take care of people that couldn't take care of themselves and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. But the problem with that is then they became supervisors, then they became commanders, and they did this during peace times when nothing was going on.
Okay.
And then we had Ferguson. Now we're in wartime. Now we need core leadership to bring you through the spitting on you, the throwing of urine on you, doxing you and all these other things. And these poor leaders that came up that should have never, ever made it through the academy or field training, these people are now in a position of authority. And a lot of them, because there's such a detriment to morale, they get shoved in specialized areas. Mm-hmm. And no dig on IA that you're not that person. But in my agency, when they needed to get away, when the chief needed to put a commander away, they put him in II. They put him in IA. And the problem with that is now they have this immense power, or what they perceive as power. Mm-hmm. And these chiefs who, quite honestly, a lot of the chiefs shouldn't be chiefs, in my opinion. They really rely on an IA report. They get this report and it's the gospel. They don't pick it apart. They don't look at it. They don't ask for external opinions like what you do when you review them and you come up with recommendations. Mm-hmm. Not saying that needs to happen all the time, but going back to Mark's question about weaponization, an IA investigation is the same as a criminal investigation. You let the evidence take you in the direction where it should go. You should never the direction of an investigation to match your evidence or your narrative. And in both cases, these two people that you have on today, that happened with both of us. Yeah. And stunningly, we're both not in law enforcement anymore. Yeah. Which is a damn shame, because you have somebody from the NYPD that had immense amount of knowledge in drug interdiction and real crime in the late 90s and early 2000s that's no longer out there in Virginia, right outside of DC. That skill set is not something that you can reproduce. Yeah. And it's not just Nick and Mark that are going through that stuff. There's hundreds of thousands of cops that are going through that.
I can vouch for that. I got a couple of cases, and we've been talking about, unfortunately, the ones that I get is when they're facing arbitration and it's got an allegation of dishonesty. And I want to touch on that because, Nick, you mentioned something about we should handle internal affairs investigation no any different than a criminal investigation. Would that be fair to say?
100%.
So, Mark, let me ask you this, and maybe both of you can chime in. But, Mark, I'm interested to know that if an officer is being alleged for lying, we can agree that, to quote, "You lie, you die." We've heard of that before, right?
Absolutely.
1,000%.
So let's get our lens and put the scope on a false statement, untruthfulness, dishonesty, whatever you want to call it, right? And you are here at your compelled interview, and you're asking all these questions. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden you kind of think to yourself, well, that's a little misleading. I think that they're kind of lying, but they're not. Or I think they're kind of full of shit, whatever. Anyways, you ask all the questions, you turn it in. Okay. You following me so far? Because this happens everywhere. This is not just California. You can correct me. You can stop me at any time and interject. And here you are, you turn it into the adjudicators. That adjudicator can be the lieutenant, the captain, commander, deputy chief, whoever, right? And they're round tabling this compelled interview that the investigator just did. And someone decides to say, you know what? I think they're lying. Okay. Both of you are experienced enough to take it from there. What do you think the next step should be if I and the adjudicator saying, hey, Mark, Nick, when you guys did that interview, I think they're lying. What do you think the next step should be? Just out of curiosity.
I'll let you do that, Mark.
Well, yeah, I'll start it. How about you finish it up? So my thing is that we need to prove the allegation. Okay. And how do you prove that? Correct. And why do you think? Mm-hmm. You know, that should be the opposing question. I think the son bitch is lying.
Right.
We're okay to cuss. Are we rated explicit? I don't want to swear and then have you beat
we're
me.
good to go, bro. We're good to go.
Okay, so I apologize.
In the first 90 seconds, you can drop F-bombs. I think after that, they're good to go. So you're okay with that. Let me kind of add a little bit to what you're saying.
Go ahead.
Yes. So now we got to find out the why. So let me just kind of put it on the table for you. Hey, look, we need to know how much does it benefit this accused employee from being deceitful, right? How much value and beneficial is them for them to hide and say, you know what, the things are lying, or what's their purpose? Why were their intentions and willfully want to lie to the investigator, right? So let's just put that out there. But let me ask you this though, and we'll go to Nick here. Shouldn't we do like a subsequent interview? What do you think?
Absolutely. I think there's two things. One thing that we need to start doing in law enforcement is always assume positive intent when you're doing an IA investigation. That's number one. Number two, speaking from somebody that's been charged and dismissed for untruthfulness.
Okay.
My question is it untruthful of your version of events or untruthfulness of what the actual facts are? Because that's some dangerous territory, because my case was deemed untruthfulness, which is the coup de grace in law enforcement, which is, the Brady, you can't testify, right? So
you lie, you die.
You're no good. You lie, you die. Now you're done in law enforcement.
Correct.
Now we're not just firing you from this agency. We are taking the ability for you to earn in this profession forever, unless you get some chief that's going to overlook it, which is highly unlikely. But I'll go back to it again. Untruthfulness of your poor investigation and your narrative, or untruthfulness and you're not taking into consideration what the actual facts are. That's a very, very frustrating thing when somebody is under investigation. And again, speaking from experience, very frustrating.
So let's relive a little bit of what happened to you, because one of the questions I have in terms of your case is, did anyone do a subsequent interview and ask those hard questions and say, hey, Nick, we think you're lying, and here are the reasons why? In other words, Nick, you know what? When you told us about this factual stuff right here, in that call for service or that traffic stop or that investigation, whatever the case may be. And you know what? I need some more clarity. I want to be clear about what you said to us in your first interview. Right, Nick? You had a chance to review and listen to your first interview. Because my thinking is there's some misrepresentation, or you're kind of just misleading me to make me believe that you're actually lying. So I got to ask you, why don't we do that? And here's what bothers me the most. And I'm writing this soapbox right now because these are the cases that I deal with.
Yeah.
And it's so simple to say, well, dude, just ask the hard questions, bro. I mean, that's like part of your job. What do you think?
Yeah, I think had that have happened in my investigation, I'd be a captain right now. Yeah. In an ideal world. Yes. And if I had a really good, solid chief and things didn't go in the direction that they went. So to answer your question, without going through my whole entire story, I left my agency as a sergeant because I had a lieutenant that was creating an extremely hostile work environment, undermining my authority and so on. I left. I went and took another job as a civilian for 1 week when I realized this was a colossal mistake. I called my chief up. I said, hey, listen, I made a terrible mistake. I'd like to come back. He's like, hey, listen, I don't even think you're out of the system. Call HR. We'll bring you back. I said, okay, no problem. Back as a sergeant. He's like, just call her. She'll handle everything. 3 months later, I get a phone call to come back in headquarters. They bump me down to master police officer, made me go through field training all over again, put me on a year of probation. I'd been with that agency for 14 years. The reason why they didn't call me in for a second interview was because they did my II 5 days before my probation ended.
Okay.
And so they couldn't extend. It was the beginning of COVID. They wouldn't send me for a polygraph because it would extend over my probationary period. They wouldn't call me in for a second interview because it would extend past my probationary period. And that would give me grievance rights. That would give me a lot of things that I didn't have
Correct.
being on probation. I was an at-will employee at that point.
Okay.
So answer to your question is had that have been done, it would have been a completely different thing. And to touch on it even more is it also gives you an opportunity as the accused to produce evidence to support what you're saying.
Yeah.
And we don't do that. We don't do that in my eyes. A lot of it is one-sided investigation. It is not a court. It is not, well, I've got this on you. Okay, well, here's my alibi for that, or here's my explanation for that. We don't do that. We don't do that in those cases, which is terrible.
Yeah.
Think of how many talented people that we have lost over the years because we haven't done what you just, which is a beautiful suggestion. Let's call out the lie. Let's call it out, or the deceitfulness. Hey, listen, I'm calling you in for a second interview. You're saying, I wasn't over at that victim's house after you left. But, I'm looking at the GPS data on your mobile computer and it's got you returning back and you're there for 45 minutes during the time frame that she says that you had consensual sex or whatever it is, right?
Yep.
How do you rebut that? What do you say? Like you say, hey, listen, my computer's broken. There's no refuting that. But
Correct.
at least it gives the person a second opportunity to come in and be like, listen, we talked about it before. You lie, you die, right?
Mm-hmm.
Any good cop knows when they're wrong. Any good cop, I have to underline that. Any good cop knows that they're wrong and understands that there is a severe punishment for when you're wrong. And they'll beat themselves up more than IA can ever, or their chief can ever beat them up.
Amen.
So more times out of 10, they're not going to come back for the second interview when they're guilty. They're just going to be like, you know what? I'm out.
I'm out.
That's it.
I'm done.
I'm out.
And right now, if you see my stuff lately, I'm riding hard on the ones that resign in lieu of. I hate those, bro. Hey, man, look, you know what? We preach transparency. We preach accountability. Guess what, man? Stick around. Don't like leave and wipe your hands clean and say, you know what? I messed up. Stick around, get IA, get served. And if it's termination, okay, great. Now I can resign in lieu of. But all those headlines that I see all over, because I scrub YouTube all day and I love those where they go, hey, today they've been filed on and they're resigning in lieu of. They're a former police officer. No, bro, you know what? Stick around because, again, we preach transparency. And to your point, before I get to you, Mark, I couldn't agree with you more. The only thing I would add is the fact that, hey, if we do it with suspects, right? You have a robbery suspect and you're walking into the box and you're interrogating them. A couple of things are going to happen. A, they're going to admit it. Two, they're going to tell you to pound sand. Or three, they're going to lie.
Yeah.
It's one of those three, right? Why don't we do that with our own colleagues? It just doesn't make any sense to me. We should be teaching internal affairs investigators to challenge an accused employee for which you might believe that they're actually being deceitful, right? Some will say, and I talked about this with another IA investigator in LAPD, will say, well, you know what, Marlon, we got DNA and we got all this evidence. So why go do a second interview or a subsequent interview? What is he going to say? Yeah, you know what, you got me. No, but at the very least, challenge them. It's part of the job. It's just,
I would add to it, and to sort of defend the resign in lieu of. The problem is that in our upbringing, in old school law enforcement, Mark, me, you, there was a point where if you did come forward or you did have honesty, there was an end to the investigation once you left, right? We have a culture within our profession that's festering way worse than I've ever seen it, even after I've left, where it's no longer the fight is over once the bell rings. Now it's, I'm going to affect your way to earn.
Right.
And
Yes.
Mark and I were a big, big recipient of that. For over a year, couldn't find a job. Couldn't figure out why I couldn't find a job. And it was until I went for a background investigation I found out why. But we'll get into that.
Yeah. And Mark, before I get back to you, just to make clear, I'm speaking from a lens of, I'll give you an example. There was this officer, I'm not going to mention any states
Oh,
whatsoever,
don't.
where I believe he worked at Walgreens and he just got off work and he was waiting. He was like sitting, outside of Walgreens. Cop comes up and asks him, what are you doing? He's on waiting for my Uber. And then next thing you know, he just tunes him up. Right.
That's cut dry.
And the Lyft driver is there. And he basically tells the Lyft driver, hey, don't worry about it. We're going to arrest him. 140 APC, interfering with, battery on a peace officer or whatever, one of those charges. And next thing you know, I hear in the headlines that he quits. What I'm saying is that, bro, don't quit. If you know you did something wrong, take some accountability for it. That's all. Hey, man.
Oh, yeah.
That's I just want to make clear. Those are the kind of situations that I like to point out because I think it's very, very important, especially if he preached the buzzword transparency. Hey, man, why don't you call him up and apologize and say, hey, dude, I got it wrong. I don't know. That might be something that is suitable. It's fair. It's reasonable. But anyways, Mark, let me ask you this because you know what? I got my phone here. You sent me a dissertation.
Did he send you a picture too? He keeps doing that.
All kinds of stuff. I mean,
that wasn't supposed to be in there. Man.
You were cut and dry, and I'm gonna front load this because you made the news, bro.
Oh, did I ever make the news? And so let me preload this here before you get to your question. So first of all,
if I may interject, let me at least give it.
Absolutely.
I gotta give the headline, bro. The headline right here. I mean, come on. Tipp City police officer returns to work following BCI investigation. So they got it wrong. So I'll leave the floor up to you, bro. What happened?
Wow. How much time we got? I'm going to try and nutshell this really quick.
How about the allegations? Why don't you give me allegations first?
The allegation was that allegedly I had looked up an arrest record.
Okay.
And on our CAD screen, the allegation was that I took a photo of it and then disseminated it. So it was originally a Leeds violation. Now, mind you, I never saw a camera I didn't like. So there's two other officers in the area, and I happened to get a picture with one of them at an event. But anyway, it was always one of the three of us that was on the news for one thing or another, because, I'm not afraid of the cameras, and our policy allowed us to talk to them. So, whenever they needed a soundbite or whatever else, a good friend of mine, he's Mr. Hat on my on my podcast, The Shield Within, he and I were on there quite a bit whenever they needed something, weather related, whatever else. So I was a recognizable name. So this all kind of hinged around the race for sheriff. Okay. And there was an opposition candidate that asked me to be his car one, which would have been in our world, the chief deputy. Okay. And at the time I said, sure. Yeah, let's do this. And I was a former deputy. I was a reserve deputy for 4 years. And at this time I was, 15 years on the job and fairly accomplished and successful. So the current sheriff's spouse had gotten arrested at 9 o'clock in the morning out of an OVI crash in one of our cities here in our county. And that was the allegation, was that I had accessed that record, which, if I did what they accused me of doing, was absolutely within the scope of my job. There was no violation of policy, law, or nothing. The image that was shared on a Facebook page, which at the time, it was kind of like lampooning the people of that city.
Okay.
And the big controversy was that this woman was going to get off easy for the arrest. So this leads the photo of the actual, it just stated the person's name that had been in the news cycle for 3 or 4 days, and whoever else was there, the other person in the car, and I think who the witness was that witnessed the OVI test.
So this is Tip City?
It was here in Miami County. I worked for the city of Tip City. The arrest was made in Piqua, Ohio.
Okay, I'm not gonna go through these little small towns. All I want
Yeah, it's all right.
Is there a leaking confidential controversy going on at this time? Like, wow, this is like the biggest news thus far.
Well, the thing about it was that in order to discredit, they came after me because I guess I was recognizable, and they were thinking, well, let's knock Mark off. Let's knock off Mark the cop, because that's the biggest head we can get out of this to try and oppose the opposition candidate. Mm-hmm. So they came after me full bore. I dug my heels in, and I remember that time, and I told my crew, don't even look at that record. Don't even fart at that record. Don't look at it.
Right.
Period. And they're like, oh, no, you looked at it. I'm like, no, sure didn't. And I'll go to my grave saying, no, I did not, because there's no one on my, well, one of my officers said, hey, Sarge, I was looking at the record. And I said, good, thanks for telling me. Just let me know, down the road, it's going to come. So everything we do on that computer, there's a record of, right? Any leads transaction, which is running a license plate for the people that don't know, social security number, whichever, all that is recorded. So there's that. So what they did, they tried to indict me on a 5th-degree felony. And of course, I don't, and at the time, the sheriff's department went up and got the case from that other city. And then the chief of that city said that he wanted to have BCI, which is the Bureau of Criminal Investigation and Identification here in Ohio. It's kind of like, our state investigator, to come take a look at it. And it's like, okay, cool. I had no clue any of this was going on, because at the time, I was active in our FOP. I was the coordinator for our honor guard. I was at that particular chief's retirement party, and he had just called for the investigation like 2 days before his retirement party. And, I was oblivious that anything was going on, that there was an investigation going on. So one day after work, I had 2 BCI agents follow me home. Hey, Mark, can we talk? Sure, come on in. Like a dumbass. Invite him in my home. Hey, what's going on, boys? What's happening?
You give a voluntary statement, I take it.
Yeah, oh, yeah, absolutely, I did. Because, like I said, it's time. Happy-go-lucky. I got nothing to hide. Didn't think I haven't done anything wrong. So then, and about 10 minutes into the conversation, I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. You reading me Miranda? No. Are you reading me non-custodial? No. This conversation's over. Thank you. If you want to talk anymore, this is I handed my attorney's card. We will go to his office, and I'll be happy to answer any question you want. I'm not being uncooperative, but I am a citizen. Mm-hmm. I have my rights first. And where you're pointing this in, this absolutely did not happen. And we're done. What else? Sorry, I got down a little bit of a rabbit hole there.
No,
so what you were asking me,
I was going to ask you, as a result, in reading the article and talking to you, at some point they got it wrong and you got reinstated. Would that be fair to say?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I dug my heels in. Cost me a lot of money. Mm-hmm. Just so everyone knows, it's in my world, it was $385 an hour for a good representation, and it goes up to $425 an hour. But get you a good attorney. Get one that's not in the blob, or like I call the blob, because everyone in your municipal court chain, they all know one another. I think everyone kind of knows that. I hired a great defense attorney out of Columbus, Ohio, which is Ohio's capital. Okay. For good representation, and my local attorney, they worked together on this. And, I said, no, I've done nothing wrong. They said, well, you realize what a 5th-degree felony leads, right? And I said, yeah, I did nothing wrong. And I dug my heels in. Prove it. Let's go to court. There's one thing that I like, Marlon, and that's testifying in court. I am not afraid to go to the box. As a matter of fact, as an officer, my prosecutors all said, hey, whenever you got Mark the cop in the box, the prosecutor, the defense is like,
yeah, I don't know about that.
What are you offering? We don't want to go to trial on this. Well, yeah, we don't want him in there, and I've had stellar evaluations up to that point, but at that point, right? So when the minute they put me on administrative leave, my administration picked the phone up. Hey, we got a news release for you. Mm-hmm. And I was the lead-in story on all 3 networks. I was the front page of all the newspapers. So I've lived that firestorm.
Mark, would it be fair to say that the punishment's not the penalty? The punishment is the process. What do you think?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. The whole purpose was to discredit me, to make me out that I was being untruthful. Uh, if I can indulge really quickly.
Please.
There's a gentleman, and I should have took some better notes, but he worked for the Loveland, Colorado Police Department. And his gig was, I can watch a video and pick up on the tells, so I can tell if someone's lying, right? So they were going for untruthfulness with me. Well, lo and behold, one of my great friends worked in the next cubicle from him. He was also a lieutenant for the Loveland, Colorado Police Department. And he calls me up one afternoon. I'm on the shelf, so as we call it, and he's like, "Hey, MFer, what are you doing?" I said, "Well, sitting around the house because they made me be at home every day from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. in case they needed to call me."
Of course.
So I'm out back having a cigar, and he says, my co-lieutenant here," he says, "he gets a letter in the mail today from the Tip City Police Department, and inside there's a DVD that has interview with Sergeant Mark the Cop." Gives the date, and I laughed. I said, "And why does young Mr. So-and-so have this?" And I said, "What's his side gig?" And he says, "Well, he's looking for truthfulness." And I started laughing. And my friend said, "Oh, put that motherfucker in. I know this guy." Sorry, I swore. Put that in. I want to take a look at this. I know this guy. I know him really well. So I said, "So what'd you think of the video?" And he says, "Well, whoever this detective so-and-so is didn't have the wherewithal to put the DVD in a hardened case. So when it went through the mail, it broke it."
Oh,
and I said, "Oh, nice. So what does this young man charge for this service?" Now the interview was 2.5 hours, and he charges $500 an hour to look at this. So my city was willing to pay the $1,500 to prove that MTC was lying.
Okay.
And I said, "Wow. They could have went to the local FBI office and got that." And then I learned afterwards, well, they didn't go to the local FBI office because I'm kind of a big deal. I don't want to sound like Ron Burgundy, but I'm very well networked, and they were afraid that I knew somebody down there, so they threw it out the Loveland. And had they went in my office and looked on my bulletin board behind my desk, they would have seen me with that lieutenant standing in front of his Loveland cruiser with my arm around him. So yes, needless to say, I got a good laugh out of that. So
wow.
Dug my heels in. There was nothing there. It was the hugest nothing burger in the world. And I'm the type of person, if I did something wrong, I'm going to tell you I did something wrong. And when I got brought back to work, and I told my then it was awkward, but I put my big boy pants on. I walked in the door and I said, "Look, prior to me being cleared, I was never cleared. By the way, that the chief at the time had never cleared me."
Really?
As the article states, there's insufficient evidence to prove that he did anything. Yeah, no shit, because there was none.
Oh, wow.
So while I was working, I told them, I said, "Look, man, I'm here to cooperate. I got nothing to hide. And if you guys want to talk about this, we need to have my attorney, my FOP rep. You can have your attorney and whoever else in the room, and we'll have us a great conversation because I got nothing to hide. I've done nothing wrong."
Right.
They interpreted that as, "Oh, Mark the Cop lawyered up. He's being difficult." It's like, no, I'm not difficult at all.
Yeah,
but remember,
rights, constitutional rights.
Exactly.
It's not a big deal.
So yeah, it cleared up. I got reinstated, and then he came in and said, "Well, yeah, I'm going to give you your discipline." I looked at him and I was like, "Excuse me, what discipline? And if you're issuing discipline, I'll just go ahead and get the grievance process started right now because there is nothing, and you know it."
It's almost as if you felt like they doubled down on you when you came back, right?
Well, Marlon, it gets down to the fact, and I think Nick can agree with this. You said, "I think Mark the Cop's lying." Someone around the table says that. So now we have to prove our narrative.
Yeah.
And I think that's the direction where a lot of these are. We need to prove this. And my chief even leaned over the desk and he said, "You did this." "Yeah, I know you did." And I just looked at him. And I gave my FOP rep aside, and he's like, "No, don't," because I really wanted to come across the table
yeah, I without saying it, I know exactly how you feel. I don't know how I feel because I didn't want to do that because I haven't been criminally filed on, but you have. Going to Nick, I got to ask you something. Did you feel like a criminal in your case, in your IA? What do you think, Nick?
Me? Yeah. I mean, when I got pulled in the
I
box,
mean,
the
Mark,
first,
Mark, Mark got criminally filed on, so he's got work on you. That's a
well,
topper, bro. You can't top that, but you must have
y-
felt the same. What do you
well,
think?
I initially thought my investigation was a joke, to be honest.
Well, let's
I had
see.
heard rumors for weeks that I was under investigation. And when I asked my captain whether or not I was under investigation, he danced around the subject. And then
Uh-huh.
the next day I was in IA in the box and having my Miranda read to me.
Okay.
And the first thing that they did was read Miranda. And then I was like, I'm not telling you anything without my attorney. I was the vice
Right.
president of the union. And the captain from IA was like, okay, well, then we're just going to go right into the administrative investigation. And our department policy is that you can't conduct an administrative investigation until the criminal investigation is concluded.
Right.
And how do we go from criminal, read me Miranda, to hey, now we're going to go into administrative?
Ooh, it's a good point.
Right.
Did they ever clear up
No,
or give you any sort of understanding as to what the criminal charges are?
it all stemmed from how close I was to getting off of probation. Everything was going to be settled in that box that day.
Okay.
And it wasn't until a year later that I started to realize that. Like when I went into that box, I had a red binder full of emails
Right.
ready to rebut anything and everything because it was a joke. It was an absolute joke. It stemmed from starting the Roll Call Room podcast 2 months prior. They
Oh,
were not happy about that. They sent it to the city. They sent it to the city attorney to find out whether or not they can make me shut it down.
wow. Okay. So
Which the
it's
city,
starting to make
yeah,
sense now. Got it.
it totally is. And here's the kicker of it. I never mentioned my department at all on my podcast. I'm not stupid.
Yeah.
Uh, I'm dumb, but I'm not stupid. But they didn't like that I was talking about commanders and chiefs of police in
Oh,
a
yeah.
very negative way. So when I sat down and this captain, who I absolutely respected before that, started asking me questions, it all stemmed around uh, um, audio video equipment. I was the
Okay.
sergeant of community policing. I also had a DJ business on the side. So there was equipment that our police foundation paid for, and then there was my equipment from the DJ business. The funny thing is the administrative investigation has to do with a police foundation that has nothing to do with the police department,
Okay.
but they were investigating it. That's fine. So when I left, the head of the police foundation said, "Hey, we need to do an inventory before you leave the police department to know where everything is." And I said, "Hey, listen, we've done a couple of community events where these community events are not in the greatest neighborhoods, and they've equipment has walked off.
Right.
Let's do an inventory of it. Whatever's missing, let me know. I will cut you a check for whatever the amount is because I'm the sergeant of the community policing unit. The equipment is my responsibility. I, it's my responsibility. I'll pay for
100. Yeah.
it. 100%." She said, "Absolutely not. Not going to have you do that. It is what it is. It was through donation money. It's not a big deal." This is all an email. This is us exchanging emails back and forth. So when I'm in the room with II and they go, "You stole all this equipment," I go, "What the fuck are you talking about? Like, here's the emails from Virginia, the fucking head of the foundation." And literally this is how it went. You can't see it because I got my screen, but
Yeah.
the paper turned from one hand to the other hand and went right on the desk off to the side. Didn't even look at it. And after 2 or 3 times of seeing that, I said to the captain, I go, "I'm done. I'm done with this." And he's like, "Done with what?" And I said, "We could sit here for another 2 hours. You can keep screaming at me and hope that the answer is going to change. My answer is going to stay the same because I didn't do shit. And you don't have any proof of anything because I could clearly see what's in your folder. Nobody taught you how to do an interrogation. You keep your evidence away from somebody." I said, and the third part of it is technically I bought all of that equipment out of my pocket,
Yeah.
and then the foundation reimbursed me for it later on. So technically, unless you have any receipts or anything where they have paid me for that equipment, you're basically saying I stole my own equipment.
Yeah.
And the captain was not fun, not having it, bro. He was white Irish dude. By the time I left that meeting, his face was brighter than a red apple. And he was like, I said, okay, what happens now? He goes, you can go back out on the street. I said, so let me get this. You just sat here for 2.5 hours accusing me of stealing, and you're going to let me go back out on the street? And he's like, well, unless you want to take leave. And I go, I just find it peculiar that you would accuse somebody of stealing, yeah, and let them go out on the street. And if there's a drug bust or anything like that, you feel that somebody that you challenge their integrity, you're allowing them to go back out on the street.
Right.
And he's like, you're splitting hairs. And I go, well, I'm just going to take leave. And I took leave. And then 2 days later, I was somewhere else, and they called me and they said, hey, listen, we're suspending your police powers. I said, okay, no problem. I left everything in my locker because I knew it was coming. Okay. It was pretty obvious. And I said, I'm going to resign. And next thing I knew, I got a phone call from the chief of police, who I thought was going to do the right thing. And he was like, you're not going to resign. He's like, don't resign. They're going to send me the case. I'm going to look at the case. Don't resign. I'm like, okay, no problem. Literally an hour later, my phone rings. It's IA again. And they're like, hey, listen, this was on a Friday. They said, hey, Monday morning, you need to come to headquarters with all the stuff, all your equipment, and anything else that you stole. And we accept your resignation. And I was like, I just got off the phone with the chief. And they just basically were like, come bring your stuff, and that's it. And I shot you over the background investigation that I discovered.
Well, apparently, and thank you for sharing that. I'm looking at this, and you sent it to me. And apparently, in the notes here, yeah, you.
I don't think Mark has even seen it.
Yeah, let's see.
No, I haven't.
You're unfit to hold a security clearance. That's what's the post, right?
Yeah. So my background investigator, she did background investigations for the U.S. Marshals for 30 years.
Yeah.
She called me up and she said, hey, listen, I need to, the last part of your hiring process is I got to call your previous agency. What are they going to say about you? And I said, nothing good. And so like maybe 2 hours later, she called me and she's like, hey, listen, I've been doing this for a long time. You need to FOIA my background investigation, because I've never seen a place so venomous towards you, towards an applicant. And I swear to you, this is what she said to me. She goes, did you sleep with the chief's like daughter or something? And I was like, no, why? She goes, I've never seen people this angry before. Like, they're putting in your background investigation that you're mentally unfit, and you had a podcast, and
it could have put you on the red flag. Could have red flagged you.
Yeah, man, it was bad.
Yeah, you know what, Nick? Thanks for sharing all that. And I'm here to tell you that from my experience, having worked in internal affairs, having defended cops, of course, I would love to defend cops more than to prosecute cops, because we do get it wrong sometimes. And in this case, no different, where I always say this is that at some point, as it goes through the levels of review, even at the adjudication level, it gets personal. It's the saddest part about it. I feel for the ones who have the small to medium-sized agencies, because we can all agree that the minute you get an IA, bro, even the janitor knows that you have an IA, right? And and everybody knows. So regardless of the outcome, whether it's going to be sustained or, and by the way, just a little criticism on this, what you sent me is that it says the fact that you resigned while you were under investigation for a fireable offense. Okay, fine. And then it says sustain allegations of untruthfulness. Well, it's kind of hard to sustain something when you haven't really opened up the lines of questioning about that untruthfulness. Because you and I both know that sustain means occurred. So
it gets better in that thing. When you read the final page, it says, he resigned and we continued the investigation and found him guilty.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, because I was taking a lot of mental health medication when I got kicked out of the police department. So it didn't register until I got off of it, where I was like, what job, like at Subway, when you get fired, do they then go back and look at the video of all the sandwiches that you didn't make correctly? No. When you leave the door on the way out, it's over.
Yeah.
Like it is over. It's comical. And the sad part
you
I
left a
went to
couple of
yeah,
sandwiches that were pre-made, and we're gonna, just ensure that those
you
were
gave too many
wrapped.
tomatoes. Too
And
many
so
tomatoes.
we'll get back to you on that. Uh, and the interesting part about as humorous as this all sounds is, I tell this to people a lot too. Also, is for the most part, not all the time, but for the most part, you do frame an allegation of untruthfulness during the official compelled interview. That's
Yeah.
normally where it comes out of. That's the birth. That's where it actually stems when you're having this interrogation, this interview between the investigator and the accused employee.
Yeah.
Sometimes you'll get a false statement or untruthfulness, like let's just say off duty, you get a DUI or a bar fight, and you get booked, and you just tell them like this whole different story. And then by the time you get to the IA, the administrative portion of it, you're like, yeah, I'm going to stick to that story. Okay, you know what? You're lying. So
yeah, that's cut and dry.
yeah,
That's cut and dry.
that kind of didn't make sense. There's a lot of video there that doesn't really quite.
That's you in the booking photo. You
Yeah.
know that, right? That's my brother.
Right. My twin. So Marlon, like with mine, my attorney sent the chief a letter and asked for either Montgomery County Sheriff's Department or the Dayton Police Department to do the internal affairs investigation.
And what did they say?
He never acknowledged. He said nothing, and because my department is very, very small, they were ill-equipped to do it. They gave it to the detective, and I should send you the narrative because I've had several others. Well, my good friend at the time was a sergeant in Dayton professional standards, and I said, "Take a look at this."
And they probably thought like,
oh no, he's like, who the fuck wrote this report? And I'm so, what do you mean? He said, you need a goddamn names ledger. He said, this is the worst written report in my life. What the hell is he talking about? I can't figure out what you've done. And who are these people? He's like, good God, who taught this guy how to put a case together? And I said, well, and he wasn't the only one. I mean, I shipped that around to a couple other people because, I don't have the power of subpoena. I ran my own investigation. Like, what are these people talking about? So I did the best I could with what I had and stay within the parameters of what I was allowed to do. So I quickly found it. Of course, their thing is to isolate you, keep you guessing, and keep you home. Mm-hmm. And my mental health was horrible at the time.
Yeah.
Excuse me. And, nobody ever came out to check. My people did. Because they knew, and this is where I started into my black hole of mental health. I was very suicidal at the time. I had the wherewithal to take all my guns out of the house, but nobody from the department cared. My relief sergeant, he went into the chief's office and said, look, motherfucker, he's suicidal. And the chief's response was, let's hope he has other friends. Wow. Yeah. So that's telling me, Mark offs himself, my problem goes away. Yeah. So, we got your back ended at the door. And once I learned that, because, where there's a will, there's a way, I still had contact with my relief sergeant. He's no longer with the agency either. And he told me the shit they were doing. And he's like, look, man, they're looking to fucking bury you for whatever goddamn reason. I said, well, I know this is a hit job that's coming from above them. So I felt that, my boss and administration were just playing along and, working on a book of this whole, and it sounds bizarre. I mean, Nick knows the story and I don't want to get too deep into it, but, at the time, the name of my book is The Pawn. Because I don't know who was playing me today and willing to sacrifice me. It was also the opposition candidate as well. So, just kind of got caught into that. Yes. And anyone at any time could have said, hey, this is a bunch of horse shit. Why we run this guy through the grinder for nothing? And I would have been all up for it had they selected, let's say, Dayton Police Department. Hey, we want DPD to come in here. We want them to investigate. And they do that. I mean, they'll go out and do investigations for other departments that don't have the resources to do it. So let me ask you, sir, if you're at a small department, would you recommend that an officer that finds themselves in the middle of an IA reach out to a larger agency that has some professionalism?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I always, when I teach, shout out to Savage Training Group in my internal affairs course, We have small to medium sized departments. And sometimes I mention the fact that, hey, if I was a chief of a small department, I would call my neighboring agency and say, hey, can you do me a solid and take care of this internal affairs investigations? There's some serious allegations that are being levied against, two of my good guys. So do what you got to do. No stone goes unturned, and just keep at it and report and direct report to me and let you know what where the investigation is. That's the way it should be. You got to do each other's favors, because you're right, the bias, especially in a small agency,
Oh yeah.
it's going to show right away. And to your point, Mark, and thank you for sharing all that, I really appreciate it, because it just reminds me of the hypocrisy in law enforcement. It's at its ultimate highest level. We
Very
claim that
much.
we're the thin blue family, we take care of each other, but the minute you get an IA, you know what, I got to keep Nick and Mark in that island all by themselves in their darkest moments, and
Hmm.
we're not going to help them out. Segue
Yeah.
into the roll call room, man. Tell me all about it. How did that all started, and whose idea was it? And here we are, and what do we got, man?
Yeah. So roll call room started right after I came back from leaving my police department and going through field training as a 16, 17-year veteran of the police department, and having to ride next to somebody as my field training officer where my boots were older than them. You know, I wrote a book, and then I started a podcast, and Roll Call Room was birthed, and it gained immense popularity right off the bat because officers like Mark tuned in that were going through what he
Hmm.
was going through, and we were talking about stuff that at the time, and we're not talking long, maybe 2019,
Hmm.
we were talking about stuff that you really weren't allowed to talk about. Like while you were
Right.
still on the job, you couldn't talk about poor law enforcement leadership. You couldn't talk about getting screwed over with promotions and special unit assignments based on popularity, which we all know. you know, um, it was really really cutting edge stuff where people were, you know, I was fielding hundreds of
Yeah,
comments a day where people were like, "When's the next one? When's the next episode?"
that's awesome. That
Um,
is
you
awesome.
know, and it was really therapeutic because aside from writing a book, that was my way of getting on and really venting for an hour and saying, this is what happened. And once they let me go, and I say this all the time, Mark, with Mark, uh, on the episode, if they, man, they should have kept me because I'm way more dangerous now than when I started the podcast, because I had a muzzle sort of say. I took the
Hmm.
lieutenant's exam and was waiting to get promoted
Right.
from a police officer to a lieutenant because I found a workaround with the way that they worded the process.
Time and
Um,
service, bro. Of
yeah,
course.
time 5 years
Yeah.
as a sergeant, which I had
Right.
7. So, and then and to go back, I scored number 2 on the lieutenant's list. That was the other reason why they rushed this II, because they were going to have to promote me, and they were freaking petrified.
Oh yeah.
Um,
You can't
and
let
but the
We can't
funny
let
part
him
was,
in the ivory tower.
yeah, and what's funny is I
take this
probably would
dude
have
out.
shut the
Take him
yeah,
out.
I probably would have shut it down once I got promoted. I probably would have shut it down, because I wouldn't want to be a hypocrite. That's the
Right.
worst thing I can do, right?
Right.
Um,
Hmm.
so once they let me go, shout out to my wonderful wife. Like when I turned my gear in, I didn't leave my bed for 4 days. I was deep in depression because all I
Oh
wanted to
yeah.
do as a kid was be a cop. And she got me out of bed. She put me in front of a therapist remotely, and the therapist was like, "Hey, start writing everything down because 5 years from now you're going to look back and you're not going to remember all these fine details. Write it out." And I was like, "I'm not a 16-year-old. I'm not going to start a diary." And that's how Police Mental Barricade was written. The first book that I wrote was Police Mental Barricade. And if you read it, the first 2 episodes reads like a journal because it was a journal.
Yes.
And it has helped an immense amount of people. The podcast and the books have
Yes.
helped a lot of people, where people are like, "Man, I'm in you know bumblefuck Texas, and I got the same problem you guys got."
Yeah.
And there's that camaraderie where everybody's like, oh, it's not just my department. And the answer to
Right.
that, for everybody that's listening to your show, you aren't alone. What you're
Mhm.
going through is not, and not to minimize what you're going through, it's not special. It may have a different flair and a little taste, different taste to it, but is the
Mhm.
same exact thing that we see, what you have seen, and the
Yeah.
great work that you're doing.
Thank you.
Um, and
Yes.
to wrap up my spiel is, we have to think about the loved ones, like our husbands and our wives, because they're there for the ride along. And when you're going through this
Oh.
IA stuff, they're going through it way worse than you are, because they have no
Mhm.
clue how to make it better. Because a lot of us are bad communicators with our loved ones. So please keep that in mind. Really keep that in mind, that it's not their fault, first of all, and second of all, you're going to have to buy a lot of flowers, because the stuff that comes out of your mouth when you're going through this stuff is never, ever good. So,
Yeah.
but again, thank you so much for all the work that you've done, man.
Yeah, no, I would only add that there will never be enough platforms for us to voice our opinions. And the other
Yes.
addition would be, this is a special circumstance, if you will, right? I mean, there's over 18,000 agencies in the United States. There's close to a million, north of 800,000 officers. And when
Mhm.
you do go through this process, this disciplinary machine, if you will, from beginning to end, you know what? You're unique wherever you are. And
Yeah.
there is pitfalls, there is self-serving issues, et cetera, et cetera. So I appreciate you guys sharing all that. I ask all my guests this questions. Of course, it's contradicting. I always say this, as much as I hate to ask, I do ask because it's part of being a police officer. Let's go with you, Mark. Worst incident in your career?
Worst incident period.
Correct.
I had to hit the cough button. I had a transsexual male,
Mm-hmm.
male to female, contracted a life-ending disease and decided he wanted suicide by cop. So my crew and I went down. Was a medic call. I was in my office doing my thing, and kept hearing the traffic, and I'm like, all right, I need to head that way. So I get down there, and what this individual had done, he went to the gun and knife show and purchased a Mosin Nagant Russian military rifle. Got loaded up, bought all kinds of extra magazines, and he was planning on having a big goal shootout with the police.
Mm-hmm.
So, and of course, I was a crisis intervention officer, a CIT officer. So, we know how to deal with the mentally ill, but I'm old school. I'm a bit of a bulldog when it comes to doing the job. And what I had been successful at with dealing with these people was booting the door and hitting them with the taser and dragging them out, and, getting them, number one, arrested, number two, getting them into the mental health cycle. Does that make sense? Kind
Yes.
of like the aggressive way of doing that.
Mm-hmm.
So my officer, Kelly, who's on my show, The Shield Within, is the Kelly. She went in first. She was doing it correctly. Okay. Taking it nice and slow. She was cutting the pie. This person was like, don't come in here, blah, blah, blah. Dan was stacked behind me, and my senior officer, Jimmy, was behind them. So I got impatient and I sidestepped around Kelly. I had the wrong weapon out. I had the taser, and she was lethal. So when I walked around the corner, I was staring down the barrel of that Mosin Nagant. He pulled the trigger. Kelly and I were stacked up. Well, I'm still here to tell the story. The problem is the Mosin Nagant has a 2-piece firing pin. He took the gun apart and to put it back together right. So, that scene from Pulp Fiction, when Jules says, that's divine intervention. MFer comes out of the bathroom with a hand cannon. Yeah, that was divine intervention. He pulled the trigger. We went back. Kelly said, does he have a knife? I said, no, he has a gun. Everybody out. So it became a barricade situation after that. So my missteps.
SWAT call out?
Yeah. Yes. SWAT call out. It had the perfect outcome. Nobody died. But I should have been lethal force. We should have put him out of his misery that night. But everyone survived. But the mental trauma that took on me, was pretty career changing. So that was the worst one.
Nick, worst incident in your career?
Mine was a traffic accident. Happened to be the closest,
Oh,
unfortunately, and it was a leopard tow truck driver um, that fell asleep on 95 at the back of a trailer. The Dodge Durango that he was trailing or towing on the flatbed went forward into the cab and pushed him forward. I arrived. He was still alive. And then, I opened up the driver's door. He was squished, not squished as in, wide open or anything. Started talking to him. I say, hey, listen, I got an officer on the back trying to pull the Durango off. I got fire on their way. State police has blocked off 95. We're not going to have another accident that's going to push this on you anymore. And I'm talking to him. I'm doing everything that you can do, right? And my officer, who's trying to push the Durango, which thinking about it way after is just so stupid to even think you can. He says over, yells over to me. He's like, "Hey, Nick, I smell gas." I'm like, "All right, well, let's speed this up, all right? Like that's not going to be good."
Kind of expert.
Yeah. And so I see him jump off the flatbed, and I feel the tug on my uniform shirt, and I'm like, "What are you doing?" And he goes, "Durango's on fire." And
mm.
I'm like, "All right, well, let's, where with automatically, you blame fire. You're like, where the hell are they? Like, where are we? Where's the water?" And he goes, I don't know where they are. He's like, I said, go in my trunk, get my fire extinguisher. So stupid, right? And you use the fire extinguisher. It's like, so now the Durango is fully engulfed. Now this guy is completely screaming. He can kind of feel the heat and everything. And my guy is like
Mm.
pulling me away, and I just won't leave him. And he's screaming while he's burning alive. And I still to this day, I think I was
Oh my
4 years
gosh.
on with that department,
Yeah.
and I still like that is one of the ones with that'll wake me up every once in a while.
Yeah.
That is a scene. I've seen many bad ones, even in New
Yeah.
York, but
Mhm.
that one was rough. I think mostly, and therapy helps. uh,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
was the thing that hurt was making a promise that I was going to help him out, and I didn't, which is crazy to think.
Mhm.
And two, the way that it was handled after my sergeant showed up on scene and was like, "Hey, are you primary on this?" And I was like, I have no idea, man." And he's like, "Then go in service."
Oh my
That was
goodness.
how he handled. That's how he handled it.
No.
I left the scene and I went to another call for service, and there was nothing after that. And
Yeah. You
following,
should have went home.
I
Yeah.
should have went home. The following day, I met up with the fire marshal, who was a good friend of mine. And we had lunch and told her, that was bothering me, and she's like, "Listen, Nick, it took us 6 hours to cut him out after we put the
Oh
fire
my
out."
goodness.
And I
Mm.
was like, "Really?" She's like, "Nick, there was nothing you were going to do. There
Yeah.
was 6 hours of getting the car off, cutting the cab open. We had to cut the steering wheel out. We had to cut him out of the car." She's like, 6 hours, Nick. There was no way. There was no way, even if there wasn't a fire, he
Right.
was going to die.
Right.
And then I don't know whether or not she, was saying that just to make me feel better, but it certainly did make me feel better.
Yeah.
But it was definitely the worst.
No,
Yeah,
definitely. The guilty conscience gets the worst of you, of course,
totally.
100%.
Oh, oh
And
gosh,
again,
yes.
as much as I don't like asking, I do because that is police work. That's what you
Oh
signed
yeah,
up for. And it's not about TikTok cops and it's not about all this other stuff that we see. If you want to sign up and do all this, this is what you get, man, which brings me close to the end. I will say it for you. I know you can get a hold of them for in YouTube, your channel, Roll Call Room Podcast. You're on Instagram, Roll Call Room Podcast as well. And Nick, man, Mark, let's conclude with Mark. What advice do you have for anyone that wants to come on to become a police officer? What do you got, man?
Being a police officer is the best job in the world. I can tell you, it's a noble profession. I absolutely loved all of it, even the bad stuff, even the traumatic stuff. What I recommend you do is, like we say, is take care of yourself. Remember, you're a human first. The 4 F's: faith, family, friends, favorite activities. Keep yourself balanced. Keep non-cop friends in your life. They also keeps you grounded and balanced. Being a police officer, you get to meet the most wonderful people in the world. Not only other cops, but it's also the people in your city. And one little tidbit is once I got reinstated, okay, after my bullshit, I never read the comments on Facebook because I went off all social media. So about 6 months ago, I got on and read the comments from the local paper, the Tip City Gazette. Mm-hmm. Hundreds of supportive comments. I wept of the support that I had from my community. And I know that guy, and I went through it and I never read it before. So that was very, what do I want to say, healing for me.
Yes.
And it's kind of like, yeah, I am doing it right. And yeah, my city does, did respect the job that I did for them. So I had a vindication. That's what I'm trying to say. I was validated for doing what I do. But being a police officer it's a great job. It's a wonderful job. Despite the fact that, where we are right now, we were in this slump before back in the 70s. A lot of us don't remember that. I don't remember that, but I do remember seeing the news stories and hearing about, the police officers weren't good. And Nick said something earlier about, we went through a long time after 9/11 to where we didn't have any controversy. And it was easy being a police supervisor. And now, since Ferguson and all this controversy where the powers that be were trying to make us as police officers the bad person, we're not the bad people. We're law enforcement. You enacted the laws. We're just enforcing them. The thin blue line stops with us. So we're not the bad people. Is there bad people in law enforcement? Sure. But not as many that's in the realm of clergy. Yeah. This is a calling. And even there was some, you need to be able to weather the storm. I really like what you said, though, Marlon. If you find yourself an IA, just don't walk in and resign. Write it out. Make them bring it up to you. And that is great advice. And that we need to get that message out. You have a process. You have rights as a citizen. And let me tell you something, officers, and for your audience. If a state agency like here in Ohio or whatever comes to your house and knocks on the door, they aren't your friends. If they're not Mirandizing you, or they're not giving you custodial warning, hey, with all due respect, let's do this at my attorney's office. Not giving a statement. No, I'm not. I'm not being uncooperative, but I'm also not giving a statement. So let's do this the right way. If they suddenly show up and they start luring you into a conversation like I'd heard, I'm not going to say the state, but their state officers were coming in with these city officers. Hey guys, want to go to lunch? Sure. And they engage them in a conversation. Next thing you know, they're confessing their soul and they're bringing those officers up on charges. It's like, that doesn't happen. It should have been, no, all due respect, no. If you want to ask me, let's go through the proper channels. But being a cop's a great thing. I can't bless I've been very blessed in the career that I've had and to be able to do the things. I've been all across the country. I've met the most wonderful people in the world. So it's a great job.
Awesome. Thank you. Nick, any advice you have for anyone that wants to come on to become a law enforcement officer?
Yeah, mine is very quick, which is I agree with Mark on everything. I think for every one cop friend, that you have, you should have 2 civilian friends, because you will become a very, very jaded person if your only circle of friends is cops. And then my last piece of advice is know when to fold. I know a lot of guys in my current profession that have gotten out of law enforcement too late, and they're a shell of a person. You got to know when enough is enough, and the pension cannot be the excuse. I get it. I understand it. I understand that the security of, getting a lifetime of pay, but your family deserves the person that they first fell in love with. So,
great advice.
Yeah, that's my advice, man. And
awesome, man.
And it's free.
Okay. So, hey, Mark, I'm going to be in Ohio. I think we already talked about that. So
yes, we did.
All I ask for is just the best old fashioned that you can take me to have. That's
perfect
my requirement.
I will buy. So
And Nick, when I go to that Orange State,
come on down, buddy.
yeah, I got to go down there. We are going to be down there soon. I got to go see Nick off duty. Love Nick Perez. He's such a good dude.
Come on down.
I'm
I'll
gonna come see
introduce
you,
you to.
and you owe me an old fashioned as well.
Yeah, I got you, bro.
I'm sure we
got you
can figure
covered.
that out. You guys, when I found you, I was just like a little kid, like, oh my God, oh, so bad. And because we all have something in common, and I appreciate the respect. I appreciate you guys coming on, and we're all doing good things. And you both come on down to, and anytime you make it to Los Angeles, you can come to the studio, and I'm sure we're going to have some great conversations. And whenever you need me for anything, a hot topic, come on the podcast to break down something that's, going, whatever the case may be, or any advice, you know how to get a hold of me, brother.
It's already in the works, buddy. We'll have you back on.
That's awesome. Like always, please be safe out there, and don't forget to go Coach 6. Thank you.